You know how some people just disappear from your life so cleanly it's like they were never really there? That was Dylan for me, until the night he showed up on my doorstep, soaked from head to toe, shivering, and gripping a duffel bag like his life depended on it. We hadn't seen each other in 3 years. Not since college graduation, when we got way too drunk, hugged for a little too long, and promised to keep in touch. Of course we didn't. Life happened. Jobs, cities, people. But in college, Dylan had been everything to me. My roommate, my best friend, the guy the first was quietly in love with, but never brave enough to tell. And now, here he was. "Hey," he said, as casually as if we'd just seen each other last week. "Can I crash here for a few days?" I stared, unsure if I was still dreaming. Yeah, of course. Come in." He stepped inside, dripping water all over the floor. His jeans were soaked, his hoodie clinging to him like a second skin. But it wasn't just the rain. He looked worn out, like something had broken loose inside him and he didn't know how to fix it. "The bathroom's down the hall," I said. "Grab a hot shower. I'll find you some dry clothes." He nodded, clutching that duffel tight until he disappeared down the hallway. That's when I knew something was wrong. Really wrong. While he was in the shower, I just sat on the couch staring at the wall, my heart racing. Every memory of him came rushing back. Movie nights in the dorm, falling asleep, talking about life. The time he got blackout drunk and told me I was his person, whatever that meant. I thought I'd moved on. I hadn't. When he came back out wearing my sweatpants and a hoodie, he looked softer. Smaller, somehow. "You all right?" I asked. He sat down beside me, real slow. "Yeah. No, I don't know." He didn't offer more, and I didn't push. He looked like he was hanging on by a thread. "You can stay as long as you need," I said. His eyes met mine. "Thanks, man." We sat in silence for a long time, and eventually he crashed on the couch while I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, wide awake. I thought that would be the end of it, but it wasn't. At 3 a.m., I woke up to the sound of soft footsteps in my room. Dylan was standing there, wearing my hoodie, looking lost. Without a word, he sat on the edge of the bed, head in his hands. "You okay?" I whispered. He didn't look at me. "Couldn't sleep. You want to talk about it?" He shook his head slowly. Then he lay down beside me. Not touching, not even close, but close enough. "I didn't know where else to go," he said, his voice cracking just enough to break my heart. "You're here now," I said. I rested a hand gently on his arm. He didn't move away. And for the first time in 3 years, I felt like maybe, just maybe, he was feeling something too. When I woke up, the light was barely creeping through the blinds, casting long strips of pale orange across the ceiling. My brain hadn't caught up yet, but my body had already registered something unusual. The steady warmth beside me. The slow rhythm of someone else breathing. Dylan. He was still there, curled up under the blanket, facing away but close enough that I could feel the heat radiating off him. His hair was messy, still damp at the ends, and his arm was tucked under the pillow. My hoodie, now his, apparently, had ridden up a little, revealing a thin sliver of his lower back. And suddenly I wasn't tired anymore. I laid there still, afraid to move, afraid that if I did, he'd snap back into that version of himself who kept everything sealed tight. Last night had been a glitch in his armor, a moment of raw honesty. I didn't want it to end. Eventually, he stirred, stretched a little, rolled over. Our eyes met. For a second, neither of us said a word. Then he cleared his throat and sat up slowly. "Shit," he said. "Sorry, I didn't mean to stay the night in here." "It's fine," I said quickly. "You were out cold." He rubbed his eyes. "Yeah, been running on empty for a while." "You want coffee?" I asked, needing to escape the weight of his gaze. God, yes. In the kitchen, I moved around like I wasn't losing my mind. Like I didn't keep replaying the way he said, "I didn't know where else to go," in my head. He leaned against the counter behind me, watching quietly, not speaking. When I finally handed him a mug, our fingers brushed. Just barely. But I felt it all the way up my arm. He took a sip and exhaled like it was the first time he'd been able to breathe in weeks. This place smells the same, like cinnamon and laundry. Not sure that's a compliment, I said with a grin. He smiled back. Really smiled, for the first time since he arrived. And just like that, I remembered why I fell for him in the first place. So, I started, trying to sound casual. You gonna tell me why you're here? He looked down at the coffee in his hands, jaw tightening slightly. For a second, I thought he wouldn't say anything. But then, I left my job, he said, walked out. I blinked. Seriously? He nodded. It was toxic, like beyond repair. And I broke up with someone too. That part hit harder than I wanted to admit. Oh, I said, trying not to sound too interested. Didn't know you were seeing anyone. Yeah. It wasn't anything good, he said, then paused. I felt like I was losing myself. Everything just piled on. So you drove all night and ended up here? I asked gently. I didn't even think about it, he said. I just started driving and somehow your address came to mind. I didn't plan it. I just ended up on your street. We were quiet again. The air between us felt heavier than before, like we were both trying to figure out what this was, what we were. Do you ever think about college? He asked suddenly. I shrugged. Sometimes. Not as much as I used to. I do, he said. Mostly late at night. About how things could have gone differently. He didn't look at me when he said it. Just kept staring into his mug like it held the answer to something. I opened my mouth to ask what he meant, but then he looked up, and whatever was in his eyes made my heart stop. I miss that version of us, he said quietly. Before everything got complicated. Me too, I wanted to say, but I didn't. Instead, I nodded. Yeah, me too. The rest of the day felt weird in a way I couldn't shake, like the air in the apartment had gotten thicker, harder to breathe. Dylan didn't say much, but he didn't leave either. He stayed. That alone told me more than anything he'd said so far. We ended up doing what we used to do best. Nothing. Just hanging out. I put on some dumb comedy movie we'd watched a dozen times back in college, and he didn't complain. He sprawled out on the couch, his feet in my lap like old times, like nothing had changed. Except everything had changed. I couldn't focus on the movie. Not really. Not with the way his leg kept shifting, the warmth of him pressing against me. I knew I should move, make it less intimate, less confusing. But I didn't. And then I caught him staring. Not like a glance, a real stare. His eyes on me while he thought I wasn't looking. The kind of look that makes your stomach tighten, like you're standing too close to something that might catch fire. I turned to face him. What? He didn't flinch. Nothing. You're staring. You've got something in your hair, he said, smirking a little. I reached up, confused. What? He reached out before I could stop him. His fingers brushed just behind my ear. Got it. It was nothing. And everything. That 1 second of contact sent a jolt through me so strong I felt a little dizzy. He didn't move his hand right away. His fingers lingered just slightly too long, grazing down along my jaw before pulling away. Neither of us spoke after that. The silence was louder than the movie. Eventually, he stood up and stretched. Gonna crash early, he mumbled. Didn't sleep much last night. I nodded, pretending my heart wasn't slamming against my ribs. Yeah, okay, get some rest. He disappeared into the guest room. I stayed frozen on the couch, staring at the pause screen. My face felt hot. My thoughts even hotter. It wasn't just me, right? That night I barely slept. I kept tossing and turning, my brain chewing over every look, every touch, every pause. I kept thinking about college, the nights we'd stayed up, talking about life, girls, dreams, all the stuff we were too scared to say out loud. I wondered if he was awake too, if he was lying there thinking the same things, wondering the same things. The next morning, he was already in the kitchen when I came out. making coffee like he'd lived here for years. He looked better, calmer. Hair still messy, hoodie still mine. "You sleep?" I asked. He nodded. "Best night of sleep in a while, actually." We sat in silence again. Not awkward, just quiet. Then he said, "Hey, can we do something today? Just you and me?" "Like what?" He shrugged. "Doesn't matter. I just don't want to be inside all day." I looked at him, trying to read between the lines. He was fidgeting again, fingers tapping against his coffee cup. Nervous energy. Dylan never used to fidget. "Sure," I said. "We could go to the park. Walk a bit. Clear our heads." "Yeah," he said, nodding quickly. "That sounds perfect." It wasn't just about clearing our heads, though. I could feel it. This was building towards something neither of us had the words for yet. But they were coming. We went to this park a few blocks from my place, one of those weird little city parks that feels like it's trying too hard to be peaceful. It had a winding path, some scraggly trees, a fountain that never quite worked right. But it was quiet, and that was enough. Dylan kept his hands in his pockets the whole time, his shoulders hunched like he was carrying something heavy. I didn't press. We walked side by side in silence for a while, just the crunch of gravel under our sneakers. Then he said, "You ever think about what would have happened if things had gone differently?" I glanced at him. "Differently how?" He shrugged, still staring straight ahead. "If we'd been honest, back then." I stopped walking. He did too. For a second, we just stood there in the middle of the path, this weird little bubble around us, like the whole world had hit pause. "Honest about what?" I asked, even though I already knew. He looked at me then. Really looked. "I think you know." I swallowed hard. "Maybe, but I want to hear you say it." He took a breath. "I liked you. Back then, more than a friend, I just didn't know what to do with it." My chest tightened. "You never said anything." "Neither did you." "Fair." I didn't know what to say. My brain was short-circuiting. For years, I'd convinced myself I made it all up. That the little looks, the touches, the way he used to say my name when he was half asleep, none of it meant anything, that it was just wishful thinking. But here he was, saying it out loud. I was scared, I admitted. You were always surrounded by girls, parties, all that straight boy energy. I figured I didn't stand a chance. "I was faking most of that," he said quietly, trying to prove something to myself. To everyone. We sat down on a low stone wall near the path. The air was thick with the smell of damp grass and city dust. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "I should have told you," he said. "I wanted to. So many times, but I didn't want to ruin what we had." I nodded slowly. "Yeah, I get it." We sat there in silence, letting it all sink in. The years, the missed chances, the weight of everything we never said. Then he turned to me, voice lower now. "Is it too late?" I looked at him. Really looked. The way his hair curled at the ends when it was damp. The scar near his chin from when we tried to skateboard down the dorm hallway. The way his eyes always softened when he was scared and trying to pretend he wasn't. "No," I said. "It's not too late." He exhaled, a mix of relief and nerves. "I don't know what I'm doing. I'm still figuring stuff out." "I'm not asking you to have it figured out," I said. "I'm just asking you not to disappear again." He nodded. "I won't." We started walking again. Not touching. Not yet. But closer than before. Too close to pretend anymore. Something had shifted. And we both knew it. After the park, we grabbed burgers at this tiny place I loved. Half grease, half nostalgia. Dylan didn't eat much, mostly just picked at his fries while I inhaled mine, like a guy who hadn't seen real food in days. He kept glancing at me like he wanted to say more but wasn't sure how to start. Back at the apartment, the silence wasn't awkward anymore. It was loaded. Like we were both trying to figure out what came next without saying it out loud. He followed me inside, toeing off his shoes like it was automatic. "Hey," he said, hesitating near the hallway. "Would it be weird if I stayed in your room again?" I paused. "No, not weird." He looked relieved. "Cool. I slept better. With you there." That probably shouldn't have made my chest feel the way it did. But it did. We didn't talk much that evening. Just a shared beer, a couple quiet rounds of Mario Kart, both of us playing worse than usual. I pretended not to notice how often he glanced at me. He pretended not to notice how I always looked away too fast. Later, as I got ready for bed, I half expected him to bail, to say never mind and go back to the couch. He didn't. He slipped into my bed like it was the most normal thing in the world. Like we hadn't been dancing around the truth for years. We lay on our sides, facing away from each other. At first. Then he whispered, "Can I?" He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't have to. I nodded. And then his arm was around me. Not accidental, not sleepy, purposeful. He pulled me back against him, chest to my spine, and exhaled like he'd been holding that breath for years. We lay there, quiet, his hand resting gently on my side. I could feel the rise and fall of his chest, the warmth of his breath near my neck. "You okay?" I asked. He nodded into the pillow. "Yeah. I didn't think you'd still want me." "Not after all this time?" I turned slightly so I could see his face. "You never really left me. Not in here." I placed a hand lightly over my heart. He smiled, small, real. "Neither did you." His fingers tightened slightly at my side, and for the first time in a long time, I felt calm, settled. Like maybe all the mess before this moment had led here on purpose. "I'm scared," he said quietly. "I know," I replied. "Me too." "But I want this," he added. "Whatever this is." I didn't say anything right away. I just reached back, found his hand, and laced our fingers together under the blanket. That was enough. The next morning, sunlight streamed through the blinds like it was trying too hard to be gentle. Dylan was still asleep, arm draped over my waist, breathing slow and even. I didn't move. Not because I didn't want to wake him, but because, for the first time in forever, I didn't feel like I had to be anywhere else. Eventually, he stirred, fingers twitching slightly before he rolled onto his back with a soft groan. "Mornin'," he said, voice thick with sleep. I turned to look at him. "Sleep okay?" "Yeah," he said, eyes still closed. "Like a rock." We lay there for a bit longer, the quiet, warm, and easy, but I knew it wouldn't last. There was still that thing he hadn't told me, the reason he showed up in the first place. He must have felt it too, because a few minutes later, he sat up, rubbing his face like he was bracing for something. "I should tell you what happened," he said. I sat up too. "You don't have to." "No, I do." He pulled his legs up, resting his elbows on his knees. "The guy that first was seeing Ryan, he wasn't good to me." My stomach dropped. "What do you mean?" Dylan stared at the floor. At first it was normal. Sweet even. He was older, had his life together, or so I thought. Then he started getting controlling. Jealous. He hated that I still talked to you, by the way. I blinked. We hadn't even talked in years. Didn't matter. The idea of you made him crazy. Accused me of things that weren't real. Called me weak, dependent. Made me feel like crap for needing space or softness. My fists clenched under the sheets. Did he... Was it physical? Dylan hesitated. Once. But that was enough. He didn't look at me when he said it, and I didn't press. I just reached out and rested a hand on his back, letting him feel it. My presence, my anger, my care. I packed a bag and left, he said. Didn't even tell him. Just drove. I didn't know where I was going, but I kept thinking about you, about how I used to feel when I was around you. I swallowed hard. How was that? Safe. He looked at me then, and I saw it all. Regret, exhaustion, hope. I'm not saying I'm ready for everything, he continued, but I want to be here, with you, if you'll let me. I moved closer, resting my forehead against his. You're already here. He closed his eyes and exhaled. Then he reached up, fingertips brushing the side of my face. We sat like that for a long time. No big declarations, no sudden kiss. Just the quiet promise of something new, something real. That night, he didn't sleep on the edge of the bed. He curled into me, like he belonged there. And this time, neither of us pretended otherwise. The days after that blurred together in the best way. Nothing dramatic happened. No grand gestures or sudden turning points. Just life, slow, warm, and oddly domestic. Dylan stayed, not like a guest anymore, but like someone who'd finally found where they were supposed to be. He started doing little things, making coffee in the morning, folding my laundry when he was bored, sitting beside me on the couch with his feet under my thighs like he'd always belonged there. And maybe he had. Sometimes we talked about the past, light stuff, dumb parties, roommates we hated, the time I sprained my ankle during our fake campus-wide Olympics event, but we never pushed too hard into the heavy things. Not yet. One night, about a week in, I came home late from a client meeting. The apartment smelled like something warm and buttery, and Dylan was in the kitchen, barefoot in sweatpants, stirring pasta on the stove like some domestic gay fever dream. "Welcome home," he said, like he did this every night. I laughed, dropping my bag by the door. "Are you nesting?" he smirked. "Don't knock it, you like carbs." I walked over and leaned against the counter beside him. "This feels weird." "Why?" "I don't know, like we've been doing this for years." He paused, spoon hovering over the pot. "Maybe we were always supposed to." The words hit harder than I expected. That night, we ate together on the couch, watched a show we barely paid attention to. Eventually, we ended up in bed again, limbs tangled, the comforter half kicked off by morning. It was soft, it was simple, and it was starting to feel like a rhythm, like something we could build from. One morning, I found him sitting on the fire escape with a cup of coffee, staring at the city like it held answers he couldn't quite reach. "Penny for your thoughts?" I asked, sliding the window open. He looked back at me. "I've been thinking, maybe I'll stay." I blinked. "You mean stay? He nodded. "Get a place nearby. Start over here." My chest tightened. "You sure?" He reached out, took my hand. "I don't want to go back to the guy the first was before. I don't want to leave what we're starting here." I sat down beside him, the cold metal of the fire escape pressing through my shorts. "I want you to stay." He squeezed my hand. "Then I will." The morning sun lit up the side of his face, catching the small smile he didn't even try to hide anymore. And in that moment, I realized this wasn't a temporary fix. This was the beginning of something real. Not perfect, not tidy, but real. And for the first time in a long time, real felt enough. It was about 2 weeks after Dylan first showed up at my door when it finally happened. Not the soft touches, not the shared bed or the half-spoken truths, but the moment where we both stopped holding back. It was a Friday night, nothing special. I was sitting on the floor, legs stretched out, organizing receipts for my taxes like a boring adult, when he walked in from the kitchen with 2 beers and that familiar crooked smile. "I made dinner," he said, setting the beers down. "And by dinner, I mean I heated up leftover pasta and added garlic. That counts, right?" "Chef-level effort," I deadpanned. He dropped down beside me, resting his chin on my shoulder. "You're sexy when you sort expenses," I laughed. "You're only saying that because I let you eat the last brownie," he hummed. "That too." We stayed like that, leaning against each other, the city murmuring softly outside the windows. Eventually, he took my hand and said, "Come here," tugging me up off the floor. I let him lead me to the couch, where we collapsed side by side, limbs intertwining like second nature. Then he looked at me, really looked. "I've wanted to kiss you since junior year," he said, his voice low. "I just didn't know how to be that version of myself yet." My heart kicked into gear. You can be him now. That was all it took. He leaned in slowly, eyes on mine the whole way, like he was giving me every chance to stop it. I didn't. When our lips finally met, it wasn't fireworks. It wasn't some Hollywood explosion. It was better. It was quiet and slow and sure. His hand slid behind my neck, anchoring me to him like he was afraid I might disappear. Mine found its way to his chest, feeling the way his heart hammered through his hoodie. We kissed like we had time, like we'd waited long enough and weren't going to rush it now. When we finally pulled back, neither of us said anything. We didn't need to. He rested his forehead against mine. I'm so damn scared. Me too, I whispered. But I want this, he said. I nodded. So do I. That night, we didn't fall asleep tangled together like we had before. We made space. We kissed more. We talked. We touched. Not just physically, but in all the ways that mattered. And when we finally drifted off, it was with the quiet certainty that this was no longer just comfort. No longer just staying for a few days. Dylan wasn't a guest anymore. He was mine, and I was his.